Hi, my name is Sarah Cossey, and today we'll be going over the SART, the Strategy Assessment and Revision Tool. The student that I have on my caseload is a student I've had since ninth grade. He's a male student that is categorized with a specific learning disability with ADHD. He is a very strong auditory learner, but he's also a visual learner. He retains his best when he's listening and hearing others speak. He has been in the Kansas City, Kansas school district his entire education, even since preschool, and it's been noted in his IEP file that he does well with reading books aloud. The student is also on the football team and he runs track. He's interested when he's reading books with fiction as long as it goes along with sports. So when he has something that he needs to read aloud or has homework, he chooses to have it read aloud to him, and he retains it best that way. He's very social with peers, but sometimes shy in class with adults. He works well with adults when he's receiving collaborative services in math and English class. He responds well to them and will mostly cue them to ask them questions. The student is very computer savvy, and he also works at Chipotle. The description of this strategy is an auditory learning support system. The student accesses his reading prompter from his Macintosh computer. If you go to System Preferences on a Macintosh, you go to the Apple icon, then you scroll down to Accessibility, then you choose which voice you want to speak as well as click the Speech Selected Text when key is pressed. The student uses a district laptop and he also has a Macintosh at home, so he can utilize his speaking device and listen to it in the text that's offered to him. There's 4 different choices of voices, and he chooses to have the American male voice read things aloud to him. This technology allows him to access a speaking device so he can hear the text read aloud to him. Whether he doesn't have the laptop with him, there's a computer in the classroom, so he can work with groups also and use peers' laptops, and they have this strategy also on their laptops for him to utilize. Sometimes he admits he daydreams if he's reading to himself without being read aloud to. So to maintain the information being taught, he does best with hearing the text read aloud to him. With the previous screen, we spoke about how to access it on a Macintosh computer. Here you can see the name of the voice that he chooses to speak to him is Alex, and he uses it with the normal speaking rate. He utilizes it with the Option plus Escape button. So that's the shortcut that he uses in order to access it fast on his computer. And it is the default setting, so that makes it easier for him to press those buttons on different people's laptops. The first part of the SART is the visual and tactile needs for the student. The student can visually access the speaking tool on his laptop by clicking Option plus Escape. In the top left-hand corner is an icon that reminds the student that he is able to use this intervention if he forgets to use it, as well as it reminds his teachers that that's available. The student is to listen with one earbud in and one out while in the regular classroom so that he can know what's going on in his surroundings for safety reasons. But it's also a reminder to also if there's a substitute, so he is able to use this to read aloud to him. And the one earbud is so that it doesn't disturb the students around him. The Option plus Escape key is easily found, and this is a reminder on his laptop. This visual representation is available consistently, so if the student does not have his laptop with him, he is able to utilize a Macintosh laptop that's extra within the classroom, as well as working in groups with other peers. He can utilize this intervention on their laptop. The second part of this art is the sensory considerations. I have found that this strategy includes this element because he is able to use his preferences with his auditory needs and also with putting one earbud in so that he is able to have a text read aloud to him in the general ed classroom, in a special ed classroom, and at home. He is able to utilize this so it's easily available to him wherever he is within the building. The sensory component is not only available under certain considerations, but it is essential to his learning within all his classes. So he uses this intervention at all times. The third part of the SART is the positive reinforcement area. The strategy of auditory learning does include this element because the student has positive reinforcement with positive praise from his teachers. It is utilized when it's deemed appropriate at the high school level. The reinforcement is desirable because between the student and the teachers around him, it is very sincere. The student appreciates when the teachers are positive with him. It is not change in difficulty or in effort because the tasks that are given, he may need prompting within the lessons being taught. So the praise is very welcome by the student. The fourth part of this art is the individualized and motivating part. The strategy for the auditory learning is included in this element. The student has its interests and his preferences built in when the student chooses which voice he would like to speak as. He saves his preferences on his computer. The plan is individualized to the student so he can use his earbud while accessing the speaking tool. And the student has a visual icon on his laptop to remind him of his intervention. It matches with his strengths as he is an auditory learner. The next part of this SART is going over if it teaches what to do. Does the strategy include this element? Yes. The intervention has this element focused on teaching to his teachers at the beginning of the school year, part of his IEP implementation, where all his teachers know what his icon is on his computer and how to utilize it so the student can best learn. The plan teaches the IEP team what to do for this intervention, and the what to do is clear and concrete. There are enough supports and reinforcement for the student to be able to meet his expectations in his learning by utilizing this feature on his laptop. The next part of the SART is if it's predictable and consistent. The strategy includes this element, yes, because the person that is using it, it is not vague. Once a person is taught the information, it's easily utilized. The structure of this intervention can be used on any laptop or computer within the school building within this district, as it is a Macintosh computer. The student may need to be retaught if he were to be at a school that utilizes PC computers. Since the student has been in the KCKPS school district and it may not be, moving since he'll be a senior next year, most likely he will be using the Macintoshes through graduation. The school can recognize the elements of this intervention and can predict the expectations to use it while reading text in his classes. The next part of the SART is reliable implementation. The strategy does include this element because all of those supporting the student as he's using this intervention for his auditory reading, they are using it in the same way. All IEP team members are taught the intervention, and the icon shows which buttons to push if they forget with the option plus escape. If the IEP team members miss the meeting that are taught how to utilize the intervention, the case manager goes out and teaches to those certain teachers or staff members. The elements of this intervention are implemented in the same manner at the same time in all locations. The next part is to decide what is next with this intervention. Taking data to see how often the student utilizes the intervention in his classes will be able to show the IEP team whether or not this intervention is still something that the student really likes to use. We can also revisit the student to see if he would like to continue using this intervention, or if he would like to use an updated application that has the opportunity to use more voices, to have the application on his phone, and he can also utilize it with the earbud. Interviewing the teachers, we can also do to make sure to see if they need to be retaught, or if we change and go to the Speechify application, then we can meet together as an IEP team to teach each other how to utilize that application. Thank you for watching my video, and I have learned a lot about the SART and how to break down interventions and see how each part works with each other to make sure that the student is successful.